Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 139 of the Tick Bootcamp podcast. The title of today's interview is Lyme in Japan, an interview with Mariko Sato. My name is Richard Johannesson.
And I'm Matt Sabatello.
So, Matt, this is the first Japanese guest we've had, and it's really important for everyone to know that Lyme disease is certainly a worldwide epidemic. And it was wonderful to interview someone whose native language was not English, but was brave enough to come onto the podcast to share her experiences with the Tick Bootcamp community.
Rich, speaking with Mariko was so eye-opening for me because it showed that Lyme disease is truly a worldwide problem. She was diagnosed in a hospital by an ER doctor, and it turned out she had Lyme disease, Bartonella, and Babesia, and was fortunate enough to get treated early and not have severe chronic symptoms from Lyme disease.
What's interesting about this episode, Matt, is there are many parallels between this experience that this young woman is having in Japan and all of the other episodes that we've done in our podcast. And what I mean by that is, yes, Lyme is an international problem, but the diagnostic challenges that are presented by Lyme exist worldwide. And this woman went to the hospital to be diagnosed. And initially, she was diagnosed with cat scratch fever, where they thought she was suffering from a disease as a consequence of being scratched by her cat. But later, her doctor was wise enough through the interviewing process to determine that because this woman is a Samba dancer who had trained in Brazil, that it was likely that she was bitten by a tick during one of her travels to Brazil. So, Matt, I'm really excited to introduce our first Japanese guest to the Tick Bootcamp community, Mariko Sato. Hi, Mariko Sato, and welcome to the Tick Bootcamp podcast.
Oh, thank you.
We're so blessed to have you. So can you share with our listeners where you're from?
I'm from Japan.
You're our first Japanese guest, so we're really excited to introduce you to the Tick Bootcamp community. So thank you, arigato, for joining us.
Ooh, my Japanese is so good.
Well, thank you. I'm blessed to hear that you appreciate the few Japanese words that I can pronounce. Mariko, what do you do for work?
I'm Samba dancer, and I also have a sales job in an IT company.
Okay, so let's talk about the first thing you do. You said you're a Samba dancer, which is very interesting. We actually discovered you also have a YouTube channel, and you spend a lot of time posting your entertainment work on social media. So can you talk to us about how you became a Samba dancer?
Someone at work is doing it and invited me.
So you had a friend at work who invited you to join in the Samba dancing profession, and that's something that you've now turned into a career for yourself.
Yeah.
And we've seen your postings on social media and some of the beautiful costumes that you wear, and it looks like this is a great way to earn a living. Do you enjoy doing that work?
Yes. So that, but now because of Corona, I have no work for dancing.
Okay, so let's talk about where you grew up and what your educational background is. Where did you grow up in Japan?
Graduated from university at age 23.
And what did you study when you were at university?
Economic.
So you were an economics major?
Yes.
And what did you plan to do when you were in the university?
I have no plan.
Did you know anything about Lyme disease before you got sick?
No. I never heard that.
So when did you first start to get sick?
Turns out I went to the hospital for another reason.
So why did you, before you went to the hospital, did you have other symptoms that were causing you to feel sick?
So I have some allergies for skin, for something, so that I want to check the reason why, so that I go to hospital.
Okay, so when you went to the hospital, you thought you were going to the hospital for allergies, and then you discovered that you had Lyme disease?
Yes.
How did the doctors diagnose you with Lyme disease?
She asked me a lot of questions about my life and thought about it.
So after the doctor asked you questions about your life and how you felt, what did the doctor do to help you to diagnose you with Lyme disease?
She recommended that I take the test first.
So Mariko, what was the test? Was it blood work? Did they draw blood? Was it a urine test?
Blood.
What type of test?
Blood and urine test.
When your doctor asked you about your life and about your allergies, what type of questions did she ask you that led her to Lyme disease and testing for Lyme disease?
She asked me a lot of questions, but they suspected it was Lyme. But they suspected it was Lyme because I have a cat.
Gotcha. So now here in America, we call there's cat scratch disease, and that's called Bartonella. Are you familiar with Bartonella in Japan? Is that something that you guys are aware of? So now your allergies. What were your allergies? Can you describe them? Was it skin allergies? Did you have a cough and a sneeze?
Additives caused irritation in my mouth, and a cosmetic caused skin irritation.
Gotcha. So it was more in your mouth, like a sore throat maybe in your mouth, and skin irritations and things like that were your allergies. And did you test positive on the 2 tests that you got, or was it only one of the tests that you tested positive for Lyme disease? Oh, DNA connect. Yeah, yep, we can see that. So you got tested from DNA Connections, which is a very popular lab that we use here in the States as well. So you tested positive for Borrelia Burgdorferi, so you had Lyme disease. You also tested positive for Babesia and Bartonella. So you had co-infections. You had 2 strains of Lyme disease, Babesia and Bartonella. So you really had a couple of things going on, not just Lyme. You had a few other things making you sick. Do you think you were bitten by a tick? Where do you think you got those diagnoses from? You know, Bartonella and Lyme disease. Do you think that a tick bit you and gave you those? So once you had those positive test results from DNA Connections from your test, what did the doctor at the hospital prescribe you to feel better? What was the medicine you got?
I was just prescribed antibiotics, and that was it.
So was it only one medicine, one antibiotic, or was it many or a couple of different antibiotics or drugs?
Only one or two. One medicine.
When you started taking this medicine, did your allergies get better right away? Did your allergies and your mouth start to feel better?
I didn't think it was Lyme at that time. I was scratched, and the doctor didn't think it was Lyme either. So all he gave me was antibiotics.
So even though your test, you had 2 tests done, the test came back that you showed me that you had Lyme disease. You were positive that you had Lyme disease. But your doctor still did not think you had Lyme disease?
I'm on the strict diet, medication, and blood cleansing.
So your doctor at the hospital didn't think you had Lyme disease, but when you got the positive test results, then you and your doctor realized that you did have Lyme disease. Is that correct?
When I was scratched me, that is 6 years ago, but I'm nothing. I'm nothing to.
No symptoms. You were not sick.
Yes.
Not sick.
So the 6 months ago, so I went to another hospital 6 months ago to test for allergies and found out I have Lyme.
You were scratched by your friend's cat 6 years ago. You did not get sick. You were not sick at that time. But more recently, within the last year, you got sick. So it was many, many years later, you got sick. So you didn't think a scratch from a cat 6 years ago could make you sick 6 years later.
A little, yes.
So when did you start to get sick?
6 months ago. I don't know exactly when it started. I don't know exactly when because my allergies have been getting worse little by little.
So your allergies continue to get worse. When did your allergies get better? Have your allergies gotten better over the last 6 months?
Not so much.
Are you doing anything? Are you still taking any medicine now to help you feel better?
Little. I'm better now, little by little. My nasal allergies, on which are always worse in the winter, are mild at the moment.
So you have nasal allergies, yep, and they're mild at the moment, so you're feeling better.
Yes.
One final question before I hand it back to Rich, because it seems like you are doing better, which is great. You're feeling better. Do you think that, because we do know that Bartonella can be caused from a cat scratch, but do you think that you got Lyme disease from a tick bite rather than the cat scratch?
Maybe.
So I think it's great that even in Japan, Lyme is very hard to diagnose and treat. So it's a very hard disease. So I think it's great that your doctor at the hospital was able to diagnose you with Lyme disease and some other things, and that you are feeling better. So that's a really great transformation for you, that you caught it and now you took medicine and you're feeling better. Are you feeling well enough to be able to do everyday tasks?
I feel so.
Mariko, have you ever left Japan for either training or education in your entertainment career?
Oh, yes. USA, Brazil, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, Korea.
Do you believe it's possible that you may have been bitten by a tick when you traveled outside of Japan?
So the doctor told me that my trip to Brazil was also suspected to be Lyme.
Okay, so your doctor believes that you probably were bitten by a tick when you went to Brazil. Did you go to Brazil to train to be the entertainer that you are?
Yes, that's right.
How long did you spend in Brazil?
11 years ago, I stayed 1 month. And 5 years ago, I stayed almost 3 months.
When you went to Brazil, did anyone tell you that they have ticks that could bite you and make you sick with Lyme disease?
I was bitten by insect.
So the insect that bit you was a tick, and that tick made you sick when you were in Brazil, or at least that's what your doctor believes, correct?
Yes, she told me that she didn't know what was causing the problem because it has been so long.
Matt asked you how you're feeling today. You're feeling well today?
Yes.
Are you taking any medications now, or have you finished treating for Lyme disease?
No, I'm still taking medicine.
What type of medication are you taking now?
I don't know the detail of the herbal medicine and the others.
Mariko, can you tell us how Lyme disease has changed your life? Has it changed your life either in a positive way or a negative way?
Nothing.
Okay, so you're continuing to work in the same profession that you were working in before, correct? And except for the coronavirus shutting down the entertainment industry, you would still be working in the entertainment industry, working as a dancer if the coronavirus didn't shut down Japan, correct?
Yes.
Mariko, we want to thank you for joining us on this podcast. It was a pleasure talking with you, and we thank you for being very brave and doing a podcast in a language other than your native language. So thank you so much for sharing with the Tick Bootcamp community. Thank you. Arigato.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you all for listening to the Tick Bootcamp interview with our guest, Mariko Sato. To our listeners, we have a call to action. First, if you'd like to learn more about Mariko Sato and her Lyme disease journey, please visit her Instagram page at SatoMarie38, or you can find her on Facebook at facebook.com/SatoMarie.MarikoSato. You can also find her on YouTube at the channel we will have listed in our show notes. Second, if you enjoyed this episode of the Tick Bootcamp podcast, please share it with your friends by using the social media buttons you see at the bottom of the post. Third, we here at Tick Bootcamp have created a Tick Bite Blueprint that has been inspired by the information that is provided to us by past guests on this podcast. We urge you to visit our website at www.tickbootcamp.com to view the blueprint. Please note we would appreciate any input or improvements you would like to share with us. Fourth, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify to get your automatic episode updates of our Tick Bootcamp podcast. And finally, please take a minute to leave us an honest review and rating on iTunes or on our website. Thank you, as always, for listening.